Well, I guess for me, one of the things that stuck out the most was probably the ballad of reading Gale. And once again, it's the first line from that poem, which Burgess ends up using in his book, just this idea of each man kills the thing he loves. And I think that really applies to Alex, with sort of, because by undergoing this treatment, in a moral and psychological sense, Alex has killed himself. And in a way, it's because of that's sort of who, really the one thing he loves at this point. I don't know, that's one of the long things, and sort of this idea that it not just apply to him, but this argument can also be both literal and sort of, non-physical killing, because every person in their life at some point, in a way, kills, most times, their hopes, whatever, ambition, sometimes, because those will change. And so it's sort of, I just see this idea of, actually, I think it makes more sense down here, with the, for each man kills the thing he loves, yet each man does not die. Because sometimes it's not really a physical death that has occurred to these things. Like in his case, in Avi's case, where the Ludovico treatment is the death of Alex's free will, but he still exists as a broken shell of a something. He's not even human anymore, so.
Yeah, but you were saying that, it's himself that's being dead. I mean, it is, sort of, but I think more specifically, it's his freedom, because, at the beginning of the book, it was he had the freedom to do all the violence he wanted. And that is the thing that he loves that's being killed, specifically.
Well, yeah, it's his humanity was more what I was trying to say.
But if he doesn't have his freedom, then is he human?
That's a good question. Not to the extent that he was, because there's no sincerity in what he does anymore, because even though he was being good or whatever, he didn't want to be. So if you can't do what you actually want to do, you're not really yourself at all.
I think this, the ballad talks about free will, and I think it's kind of hypocritical in the book that they say that Alex is a true Christian now, but they eliminate his free will, and he's not, he can't choose what he wants to do anymore. So maybe I'm not really suggesting, or I'm kind of suggesting this, that he was more Christian before when he had his choice of free will. Now that he's a true Christian, he doesn't have free will anymore.
In the article, this one, they say it's talking about why God would give us free will, if we just if we aren't doing what He wants us to do with our free will, because He gives us free will because He has faith in us, and we're supposed to choose good over evil and all that, but we don't have to. We can do whatever we want. I don't know where I was going with that.
But in our group, Mr. Kana came and talked to us, and in the middle of the back page, there's a quote that says, "God regretted that He had made man on earth, and He was pained to His very core." So we interpreted that as God being disappointed in us choosing to abuse the free will that He gave us. And so that's similar to how in the book Alex is abusing the free will that the state gives him. And so that's why he's being corrected in such a harsh manner.
So you're making the argument that the state is like God,
Yeah.
essentially. So if we make the argument that the state is like God, hope y'all knew this was coming, but I wanted to talk about, Mr. Kano was talking about Alex as a Christ figure, and my group and I went back and forth on it. Is he a Christ figure? Is he not? Because he bears a lot of Christ-like kind of characteristics, and at the same time, it's kind of wow, this guy could not be farther from being anywhere related to Jesus. So a lot of the Christ-like stuff I got was from the ballad of reading Gale, Jail, whatever it is. So we kind of decided in our group, so Brooke and Emily can help me out, but we talked about how first he's betrayed, so kind of Judas in here it says the coward does it with a kiss, so Judas betrayed Jesus with a kiss. Alex kind of got betrayed with a lot of punches, but still, he was betrayed.
But it was still his friends and people that he trusted.
And it was 3 times because he had 3 friends.
Exactly. So 3 times he was betrayed. So there's that. Number 3, Then he dies, which is like, we kind of talked about, kind of like, in quotes I say he dies, because he kills the thing he loves, which is freedom. And then he kind of is resurrected, and he's now living without that freedom. And I don't know. So I think you could definitely make the parallel that Alex is a Christ figure, and I think you could make the argument that the government is kind of acting in the place of God by kind of using Alex as this example, by kind of, I guess, quote unquote, like sacrificing him for the betterment of society. And he's kind of being made this example. He's not crucified, but he's kind of put on display. He's kind of shown, look at this. He's our first one we've ever like corrected using this reclamation treatment. And here we go. So this is our new person, and look what he does. He's our true Christian.
And that has to do, like, for me, a lot with, like, how we view religion in society. Because they say he's a true Christian because he's doing good. But that's just because Christianity is no longer, like, a religion, but a function of society to them. So Christianity means doing good. It doesn't mean the connection with God that pulls you to do good actions. And it's the same thing with Alex. Like, there's these parallels to the Christ figures to kind of shock us into realizing that, maybe get us to sympathize with him a little bit. But it's another parallel of how religion is so removed from what it's supposed to be.
I think also tying in with that, in a way, it's kind of, and what I think it's interesting is when they say the part about, you know, Alex being a true Christian again, it's also, that kind of times me, so that means their idea of true Christianity is blind faith. And I think in some ways it's like, I can understand that, but it's like, yeah, this idea of like blind faith, blind obedience. I think the whole point of our free will is that, you know, by choosing, like by having a choice, like it's our obedience should not be blind. It should not necessarily, maybe not so much be like maybe it can be unquestioning, but maybe, yeah, I guess the goal would be to be unquestioning. But if it's not, you know, like we have the freedom to question it, and the whole point is that even though we question it, we would then still be willing to choose the good, even though we may doubt it because of our free will.
The questioning has to draw you closer.
Yeah.
And I think it's also important to note that because he can no longer choose evil, because he no longer has that choice and the free will to do that, that basically takes all the value out of all of the good things he does too. So even if he is like true Christian on the outside, it's really, yeah, like we said earlier, less so than he was before, because
He's just awkward now.
yeah.
And it's not only that he doesn't, like, kind of going off what Emily said, it's not only that he doesn't have the ability to do the actions, but he still has the bad intentions. He still, like, sees the girl and he's like, yes, I want to rape her. And he still, like, sees the guy and he's like, yes, I want to, like, stab him with my knife and, like, kick him, like, 18 different times. And when the people come in, he still wants to kick them and, like, fight against the guards and stuff. He just can't do it. He's, like, he's so close to doing it. And he's, like, almost there, but he just can't take that final step and, like, actually do what he wants to do. So does that mean he's, like, I guess the question is, like, is he better? Has he really changed? Can you take away someone's intentions? You can take away their free will. Can you take away their intentions, though?
But he just got out of treatment. Like, we don't know, like, maybe this is gonna train him to change the way he thinks. Or, like, his these are his, like, initial reactions. And...
But he's done, right? I mean, he's done with...
Yeah.
But how
we
long
haven't
is it
seen
going
the
to take you to
long-term
feel sick about thinking about certain things that you're just not going to think about anymore?
Yeah, maybe eventually we'll stop.
Like, yeah, like if at one point, like if you think about doing something, it makes you want to vomit, like eventually you're going to stop thinking about doing it.
Well, the problem with, like, the psychology used in the book, not with its application to Alex, is that he was only trained away from bad, and then that kind of led him to good. But, like, he wasn't ever taught to associate performing good actions with a reward. So, like, there's very little incentive beyond just doing the bare minimum. So, like, it would be really hard for him to genuinely want to perform good actions because there was very little reward taught with that.
It's almost this idea of instead of teaching him good, they just taught him unbad.
Mhm.
1984?
Yeah, I mean, it's that same idea. It's like how they framed it, because it's like with 1984, like they had no concept of evil because, you know, it was just good or ungood. So it's like, in this case, they didn't bother to lead him to that actual step of, you know, these are good actions. These are like things you should do and you should feel good doing.
I think it will
They just
lead
repressed-
to that because, like, what he goes out at night, like he waits for, like, him and his friends to get together at night to, like, do evil things. Okay, well, he can't do that anymore, so he has to fill that time with something, like, and it can't be bad, so he could fill it with something good.
It's probably gonna
But
be like.
what if it's just like morally neutral? Like what if he just lies in bed and like
Well, we don't
Hates
know
himself
yet.
for what he's
Yeah.
become.
And I don't think he's gonna do that because he's used to doing something. I don't think he's just gonna go from doing.
He might just like
Something to
listen to
nothing.
music a lot more.
But
Well,
now
even
he
that's
can't
been
But he
listen to
can't do that because
Because
they
he
ruined that
associates it,
too.
yeah.
I don't know. I feel like